Hi, welcome back to part 3 of my rocking chair renovation. I said there'd be a couple more repairs that need to be done on this after I had repaired the spindle on the rear of the chair. But I have a confession. I've already fixed this chair one time and returned it to the customer. But one of my repairs had failed. Let me show you what's going on. Now, normally on these rockers, what they do, they have a cushion on the top, which consists of some springs on the inside, as you can see here. And there's usually like burlap straps that go across here. They're like crisscrossed, forming like a webbing that support the underside of the springs. Well, those burlap straps had all pretty much rotted. They was filled with mice nests and things like that. So what I thought I would do is put just a solid board over the bottom here, cover the hole, and still maintain the cushion of the spring on the other side. In theory, that worked out fine. But what happens is normally when you sit on the seat, you're pressing down against the springs, and the weight is transferred through the springs and against those burlap straps, and they have a little bit of give on the bottom, and there's usually no problem. But once I put that solid board on here, what happened was, so I had this under there. What happened is when the customer tried to sit on it, there was no give on the bottom, and what happened was all that weight was transferred directly against the board, and it split the board. So that's what I'm going to have to do. So I think what I'm going to do, it'll be easy enough. I think I'm just going to cut away possibly the top coil or two, coil and a half maybe, of each spring here. That would shorten them up a little bit so there'd be a lot less pressure. This way I can still maintain the cushion on the outside, but I won't have that excessive downward force causing that to break. So my first task is going to be repairing that board, getting it glued back up, reinforcing it, and hopefully it'll work out good this time. Well, after considering repairing this, giving a little bit more thought, I decided rather than try to repair this crack in this solid pine, what I decided to do is go with a piece of plywood. Now, this won't split like the pine did. Being how the grain all goes one way, if you hit it just right, you could break it right down the middle there. So being cross-laminated, the plywood won't crack. So I have this as a template for the other one. The only thing is I want to make it a little bit wider because this was just a tad narrow. So I want to add it a little bit more. So I'm going to go from the top, and I want to come down, make this about 15.5 inches. That'll give me another 1/2 inch on here, which should be just about right. So this will be my bottom edge. And then we'll trace this around like this. First thing I'm going to do is rip this off square here, then it's onto the bandsaw. What I've done here is I've taken my fancy crosscut sled here. It's fully adjustable in all kinds of different directions. And I've laid the original board on here at the correct angle here by lining this up flush with the cutting edge right here. So now all I have to do is lay my new piece on here in the same place. And I can just cut that off. It'll cut right along that line where I want it to. Just flip it over, line it up right here, and we'll cut the other side. Now it's on to the bandsaw to radius the corners. Well, what I'm going to do next is take my round over bit on the router and just sort of round the top edge of this, just to kind of soften it up a little bit, get rid of that sharp square edge. Well, I was giving it some thought, and earlier I said that I was considering cutting off some of the coils on the springs to lessen up the tension on there. Well, with this new bottom being made of plywood, cross-laminated, it's not going to split like the other one did, which was made of solid pine. And I've got a few extra screws in here to hold it down, so it should be fine like this. I don't think we're going to have any problem with it splitting. The first thing I've got to do is align it. Here I've got an indicator where I want it. And just a matter of swinging it left or right a little bit and get it lined up. Well, there. I think that'll be fine. That's not going to split. Well, you can see our cushion is nice and full again. And everything looks well underneath. There's, I don't see any sign of splitting or anything on here. Now let's just give it a try, see how she works. Again, I can bounce, put a lot of pressure on here. And there we go. Now I still have one more little repair to do. On either side of the hands, the glue apparently is dried up on the tenon where it goes into the armrest here. There's a little bit of movement here. So I thought the way to remedy that, rather than go through the side where it's obvious, I'm going to drill a hole on the underside here, right at the joint, go through the tenon at an angle from there, and put some glue on there, clamp it down and glue it, and that should take care of that problem there. And when it's all done, there won't be any obvious pin marks on there. So we're going to do that next. So I'm going to set the drill here. I'm going to drill in an angle up through the tenon on this support up into the armrest here. And when I put a pin through there, that'll lock that in. So I'll glue that pin down in there and mark the length on it, so I know where to cut it off. And now when that's in there, put a little stain on there, and it's underneath the edge here. It'll never be seen. Nobody will know the difference. I cut the pin on an angle here to match the angle here when the pin is inserted. So now I put a little bit of glue on there. And we'll make sure that's coated good, so when it's inserted in there, it'll glue both pieces together. Just make sure you get the angle of the pin right. And just push it on in there. And that should take care of that. Let that sit up for a while. And we'll do the same on the other side. Well, that winds up this project of repairing the old rocking chair. I hope you learned something from some of the techniques that I demonstrated here. So we'll see you in the next video.